G'day guys, Adam Cogan here in the SSW Chapel in Sydney, and we have a live audience, small live audience, coronavirus times, but we also have a audience in the SSW office in Melbourne and in Brisbane. So hello to everyone up there and down there, and lots of people online. Now tonight we have Matthew Wicks, who will be talking about all things to do with development productivity. And before that, we are going to do our normal news. There's always lots of news every month, and I have put together a little bit of news. But after the news, you are going to be seeing this session here. And this is the session that you'll see with
setting up an Ultimate Dev machine. So I've gone through the hassle of reformatting my computer one too many times, so I automated a lot of it and tried to make the experience as easy as possible. And then I thought, hey, if I'm going to do that, how would I apply the same concept to day-to-day work?
All right.
So,
and so
the
is this
tools you
Visual Studio, VS Code?
Yep.
Is there more?
Yeah.
There's more. All right, we'll find out.
Spoiler alert. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Great. And lots of cool extensions?
A few.
Okay. So here's some news. The first news is Microsoft Build is coming up. This is Microsoft's event. I'm very sad about this news because I have been going to Microsoft Build since the beginning for about 20 years, and I've loved them. In fact, more than 20 years when I come to think of it. And it was a great place to go, hang out, party, go to all the great parties and meet people, talk code, see great sessions, see the future. Now, by the way, it used to be a serious investment. It cost thousands to fly there. And it would cost lots of money for the conference. It would cost lots of money for the parties and the alcohol and other things, and food. Everything in America is expensive, used to be. And now it's free. It's all online. So there you go. And of course, the first thing that you'd want to do is come to the sessions and look for all the cool sessions. If you want, you can see straight away there's good sessions, but I guess if you want the best sessions, you might type Guthrie or Hanselman or whatever. Oh look, even better, you get Guthrie and Hanselman all together. And we at SSW are holding a watch-in, so people are coming here on that day. I think it's next Thursday, you can have a look. But we're going Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Newcastle, and you can come and watch it together. There'll be lots of great food, and we can all talk about whether it's good or bad, okay? And the speakers won't hear anything about it. So, looking forward to anything particular?
I think all the Visual Studio announcements. They even dropped a little item into the Visual Studio installer feed there. Right. So interesting to see what's happening with that.
So you'll learn all about VS 2022. All right. So you won't need to go to Matt's session. No. So we'll be redundant in 2 years' time, and then they'll talk about .NET 6.
Yep.
And one thing that was slightly weird that was absent is you didn't see much about cognitive services. So I don't know if something's coming, or it hasn't, or they're going to announce that stuff slightly later. But yeah, there isn't much on cognitive services, which is a surprise because we know they're doing lots of work on that. So anyway,
you haven't commented about the tab preview.
The tab preview. Oh yeah, actually, I just thought that was your machine.
Yeah. So I've gone into, this is Edge, I've actually gone into the flags, so I've tweaked it, and I've turned on previews.
That is awesome, because I have so many tabs, I can't even read a word. So, finally, great. All right, that is excellent. Thank you. So, the next thing is there's a big Windows update coming. So this Windows update has some nice things. Apparently it's all about performance, so it's going to be faster. Are you telling me you've already installed it?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, okay. All right, Matt, you don't need to listen to my news. Now one of the big features in this is that it supports Windows Hello from multiple cameras. So there's many scenarios. The most popular scenario is somebody at home has a great big monitor and a nice keyboard, and they put their laptop there, they close it, and now Windows Hello doesn't work, and now it will work with the new Windows 10. All right. So, I don't know if there's any, yeah, good. That's that news. Next news. Okay, Azure Static Web Apps. They are now GA. That is now released to manufacturing, now done. Cooked, baked, delivered. So that's great. We have been using this a lot. And I could do a little plug here while I'm here. And if you were to go to SSW Rules, this is all static site. Let me just come here. And of course it will be fast, etc., because it's all static. Static is awesome. And of course we have some dynamic stuff. You can log in and do other stuff. But this is all running. Matt was one of the architects on this, and this was Gatsby, React, and you could build your own Angular site, and it's all going to be static. Now, there's going to be different times that it's going to be appropriate and not appropriate. So in this case, you've got many thousands of pages. When Gatsby generates, you're really generating a static site, and there's some web resources, some web API calls. But on other sites, you're going to choose static sites potentially in the wrong way. You're going to make you're going to use static, you're going to have something like Gatsby or another one, and you're only going to have a few pages, and almost everything is a database call. And in that case, you're going to question, is that because you're going to lose flexibility, right?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to both approaches. So, I mean, you choose the right one that fits the application. So when you've got predominantly static content, then yeah, static site is great. If you're changing it frequently and you expect to see the updates straight away, hey, you really want to shift what you're doing. You can still use a static site, but you may want to change some things around.
Now, one of the reasons people love static sites, other than they're fast, it's very cheap. And it also seems to be positioned in a perfect marriage with Azure Functions. So if that's the way you're going to build your architecture, yeah. It's a good way, unless your Azure Functions cost starts getting expensive when you should have chosen web apps.
Troy did a talk about that, so there's ways to game Azure Functions as well. Yes. So you can always get the best of both worlds. I like the static site, the Azure Static Web Apps. I mean, everything's serverless. It's awesome. So if no one's using it, I'm not paying a lot to keep it running, keep the lights on. So.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece of news. The next piece of news, and I am going to show this. Do you know this? The news is, that is what we had. That is the Microsoft Azure function. The Microsoft Azure logo. That's what it was. And this is, if you're focused on just looking at that, you're not going to believe this. Looking at that and then looking at that was the first time. This is the new one. That's the first time that I actually realised that was meant to be an A.
Kind of looks like a D.
I didn't make the connection. That is shocking, and nobody told me. Okay, so anyway, I didn't miss it here, so that's pretty clear.
It's also like if you log into the portal, it changes the fav icon.
Oh, right.
Yes, they've rolled it out. It's pretty cool.
Do you know that I thought that the soft edges had gone away? I thought, we're all into hard edges.
No, the Visual Studio icons have that soft edge. So.
Right, okay. Anyway, do you like it?
Yeah.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
It's a logo.
Oh, one. All right, mostly thumbs up, all right? So that's good. All right, next piece of news. Blazor Day. Now, Blazor is used on a number of our projects at the moment, and the guys love it. This is very developer friendly. Who said in the company once you go Blazor, you won't go back?
Is it Will?
Will or JK, one of them. They're all saying it now. They all copied each other. Yes, but this is a one-day free conference. It's run by some Belgium guys. And you can have a look at the last one there. So it's a long day. It's in fact, there's the short part, 5 hours. Yeah, it's a long day, but if you're into Blazor, that's a great thing. And all our guys love Blazor. So next piece of news. Oh, this is awesome. The Cosmos emulator for Linux is here. It now works on Mac OS. So we have a couple of rogue SSW developers. I won't mention them. But anyway, Anthony in Melbourne has got a M1, and he's been trying to talk all the other guys into buying those, and he has to burn through his Azure credits working on Cosmos. Now he won't have to. So so now that's good news for a whole bunch of them. Tom, Brady, etc., that are going Mac all the way. So, all right. Next piece of news. Microsoft Teams. Now, you know how your mum and your grandma might have Microsoft Skype installed? Well, they don't need that anymore. They can install this thing. It is just Microsoft Teams, but you just log in with your normal Microsoft account. It's not for business use. It has all the nice stuff here. It does not have the Teams tab. So in Teams, it doesn't Teams.
Can you still share screen and remote control other people's computers? Because I think that's the
you
that's
better
the
be able
feature,
to.
yeah.
You better
especially
be able
with
to.
non-technical family.
I'd be shocked if you don't, because you had it on Skype. Now, I think the question I'd like to know, if anyone knows, can you install this if you already have Skype if you already have Teams installed?
Yeah.
So you have both?
Yeah. Well, I'll show you.
Oh, you don't tell me you've installed both.
No, you don't install it because I've already got Teams. So I've got.
Are you gonna drag this over?
Yeah. So I've got Teams here. If I go to the profile, I can see accounts and orgs and add personal account. So I can add it in, and it's just another.
Right. So you're not going to install it.
No.
Okay, but once you log into that, as per that image,
it's just as if I log into a different Teams tenant.
Right. Okay. But the UI, will it change like this? Activity, chat, and calendar.
I haven't done it. But that's
that was the question why I wondered if you can run both. But anyway, so that is that. So that is good news from the Teams team. Gee, they do a lot of work, those guys. All right. Next piece of news is for the Power Platform. Now this is big news. The Power Platform, look at this. Now, you know how Gartner have their quadrant, Forrester have their wave, and if you look at this, Microsoft, this is essentially Power Apps and Power Automate. It is now one of the leaders. It's right up there with OutSystems. This is a big move, and this is all about how well that Power Apps is done.
kind of looks like it's the stronger strategy.
Yeah. And I'm surprised because Salesforce was the big guy, and it's dropped down. So that's really surprising. Yeah, and I guess it wouldn't take much to do a search on Power Apps. It's all Power Apps these days, but you can. How much yellow do we have? Heaps. Yeah, they love Power Apps. Are awesome. All right, and I have started to notice, and I might just pop something out. SSW Rules, awesome. Documentation. One of the things that, we don't do paper docs, of course, we don't do these type of things. You do nice documents, but, you have readmes and, instructions on how to F5, etc. You have instructions on your technologies and architecture. But there is a real strong argument now to mention the alternative solutions that have been considered. And, you can build an Angular app or something, but you should have a good reason why you haven't gone, a low-code solution these days. Some types of examples of, that you've considered that. So, yeah, I just think that's going to be more and more important because there's going to be more and more cases where a low-code solution is applicable to a lot of solutions we've developed over the last 20 years. All right, next piece of news. Next piece of news is Elon Musk. He caused some dramas. He went on Saturday Night Live and the Bitcoin price plummeted during the show. And that was quite funny, even though he was just making jokes on there. They took that serious. Anything Elon Musk does is kind of serious these days, isn't it? Now,
Tesla used to accept Bitcoin as a payment method, and they stopped doing that.
They did?
Yeah.
Yes. And I have a little bit of news on that as well. So, oh, no, I won't come to that. I'll come to that. I'll come to that because I do want to mention that China also said we are banning Bitcoin and those type of cryptocurrency in China because they're going to make their own version, right? Now, it dropped 5%, so Bitcoin has been taking a bit of a hammering. I think that's I think that's probably bigger than 5% when you think about it. Losing China is a big one. But I'm impressed that a company, because companies always focus on shareholder value. They're always about we will make decisions so our shareholders get the best return. In Elon Musk, I've been uncomfortable with that because you really should be doing things not just for shareholder value, but it should be in the best interest of anyone that interacts with your company, or anyone that's affected by your company as well. That's how you shouldn't be allowed to pollute, the river if you've got a big factory, and not have that taken into account. And if all you're looking is at one value, you've got a problem. Elon Musk had an interesting situation where he has built a company and he wants to, reduce carbon emissions. And then he has this payment system and the carbon emissions are going skyrocketing. So he had to make that call because he wouldn't be...
it's not in line with the company values.
Yeah, clearly. So that is, he's obviously, by doing this, he's not looking after shareholder value, but he's keeping true to his, to the company ethos, I guess. So I thought that was great. Anyway, next one. I love this one. Now, I blogged about this, but I went to a doctor and I had a thing on my back, and the skin doctor said, oh, that should be all right. And there was an intern in there. I said, oh, what's that thing? And the doctor said, oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And then I heard it, and I said, oh, no, doctor, nick it off. I don't want it if it's questionable, thanks. So he said, oh, all right, I'll do that. I already saw it, but it doesn't matter. And then it came back like a day later. Oh, that's malignant. Quickly come in. And that was funny because I knew something was up because that was the doctor. If you rescheduled an appointment, he pushed it out 3 months. And all of a sudden he's available at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I thought, oh, something's up. So anyway, he cut out a big part and it was skin cancer. Now, have a look at this. Skin cancer is a big thing in Australia. You can take a photo of any spot you see and it will tell you what it is. Now, apparently they cater for 120 skin conditions. So that's the end of dermatologists. Yeah, I'd
still like the doctor.
He's still like the doctor. No, if you've got an app, you don't need the doctor. No, the app does it. Right.
What if the sample's skewed?
All right. Okay. So now on to other Google news. This is apparently big news, and we're going to find this out tomorrow because the Google I/O is just about to happen. But they are going to tell you there's going to be Android 12. And I know if you're an iOS person, you're not going to care about this, but this...
Oh, and Google It already came out that Google and Samsung are partnering up for their wearable strategy.
Oh, nice.
To try and get more apps running on Tizen, which runs .NET Core.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I will have space for one more. Okay. So, let's have a look at this. They say it's their biggest update, and there's a lot of changes to do with privacy. So there'll be all the warnings for the tracking of the ads. The UI has changed a lot, and yeah. So there you go. You can. I don't know if shall I put you through that? 45 seconds. Let's have a quick look.
It looks pretty.
Oh, good. Lots of curves. Curves are back everywhere. All right. And they didn't? Yeah, they went away. Okay. It looks very retro.
I think the animations, they've done something with that too, so you can buy into more of the animations.
Okay. Will it be so friendly that my wife will be able to put the phone on silent in a meeting? I don't know. So, there's the privacy stuff and other features. All right. Next piece of news. All right. Now, this is interesting, and I will so the New Zealand Spy Agency assisting this hospital, I believe, got attacked. Now, I happen to know a little bit about this because my beautiful daughter did this great story. Here we go. Now, this story, and she interviews Troy Hunt here. Where is this?
It's loading.
She'll have to do something about the performance
she needs
here.
Static
But this is a fascinating story. If you wanted to read about it, essentially a company, a hospital in Finland had a whole lot of counselling services and stuff, and all their data was stolen. And then they ransomed all the people that were in the database of the counselling practices, and et cetera. And so these people, telling counsellors and therapists their marriage problems or all their problems, and said, hey, pay a few $1,000s and I won't release all your conversations. So it's a difficult situation, right? It's a whole lot of, it's quite the story. And what is this? There were kids and then and this was happening. These were stories that were 10 years old and stuff, and it's pretty bad. And so here we go. And so basically those guys were talking about that, and here we have a similar type of story. It is bad. These hospitals are being attacked. All right. So next piece of news I have is this is a bit of fun. You can now apparently harvest the Wi-Fi signals that aren't being used and charge things. Is that cool? No?
How are they not used?
Well, apparently they can pick up the ones that are being used and the ones that aren't being used. So, I don't know. It's all pretty cool. So, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, goodness, what was it? I think I covered all these. So I'll just finish off by saying the COVID situation in India has been really bad. And the Australian government they even shut down flights from India, even Aussies trying to get back. And then I was talking to Jacob from NDC last night, and apparently there's starting to be a correlation of Pakistanis in Norway who are dying at a higher rate than other Norwegians. So, and there's some talk of whether the virus in India is super stronger, and that there's some condition that they're more susceptible to a higher fatality rate. So it's, and then And then there was Griffith University in Queensland that announced, I think it was a couple of days ago, that they had a therapy that was 99% effective. So once you got it and you were sick, they could make you well again. The problem is it's going to take 2 years to release it. So there's that coronavirus news. And I know that affects a lot more people than Aussies, or it doesn't really affect us at the moment because we haven't had any cases for about 50 days, I think, in the world.
No, there were cases a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, and where was that?
Barbecue Man.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about him. Yes, tell the story.
But that's the thing. We don't know how he got it. So.
But we know how many barbecue places
He was looking at buying a barbecue chain.
Yes.
So.
Oh, he's looking for a chain.
Yes.
Oh, I thought he was looking for a barbecue, and he went to 20 different places. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
So he's looking at buying out a chain that's struggling.
Yes.
That's the scary bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the scary bit. He just turned up with it. No one's had coronavirus forever, and then he just turns up with it and hasn't, as far as we know, hadn't come across anyone. So anyway, that's the news. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Maddie.
Thank you. I think I've freed up about 2 gigs of RAM just there. Let me get some stuff fired up and we can kick off. Cool. All right. Now, before we start, I have to mention SSW Rewards. I'm pointing over here. I hope. Wait, there? No, there. There. Okay, now I'm pointing at the QR code, which looks like it's covered up a little bit. If that QR code wasn't as covered up as it is, yep, cool. You can scan that with your phone. Hopefully you're not watching this on your phone, otherwise that's going to be really tricky. And you can install the SSW Rewards app. What do we do with that? Well, at all our talks and events when they were in person, and hopefully soon they'll be back in person, you can get points and get rewards like our, water bottles, the SSW, and Xiaomi fitness bands and things like that. So that's really cool. Yeah, sign up, get some points. I'll have a code at the end of the talk where you can get 500 points. So that sounds like a lot. All right. Setting up your ultimate dev environment. That's this title of my talk tonight. But before we get into that, who am I? I'm Matt Wicks. I'm an SSW solution architect. As you can see, I'm also a Microsoft DevOps Fast Track partner consultant. So Microsoft sends me in sometimes to help companies adopt good DevOps practices and spin up Azure DevOps and get the most out of it, which is really cool. I've also been using .NET for a really long time. So 1.1 is strictly where I started, but at that time .NET 2 beta was out, so I just said, oh, I'll look at the beta version instead. So I've always been looking at the bright and shiny new things. There's also my Twitter, my GitHub, which has a repo for tonight, and my blog, which is a static app. So, what is the ultimate dev environment? That is the question. Is it this thing? Yes, that is the right response. or it may not be. So what has that thing got? It's got 7 screens. That's insane. It's a prototype device, so thankfully I don't have to try and work out how I'm going to afford that. But you bring that to a client site, they know you mean business. Or the way I'm looking at it is I'm in a Teams call and I want to share a screen. Where's the screen? I've got too many options. I've just powered on this laptop. I forgot my charger. I've got 5 minutes now to find the charger because it's running out of battery. So there's that's definitely someone's ultimate dev machine in terms of hardware. I think it's pretty cool. I don't want to put it in my backpack though. I think I'll have a bad back pretty soon. So what's the ultimate dev machine to you? Is it lots of CPU? You know, do you need the what is it, the Threadripper Ryzen with 18 cores or dual Xeons or something like that? Do you need lots of RAM because you're tired of slow SSDs and you want a RAM disk? Or do you just need more SSDs? I'm quite lucky. This laptop has 2 NVMe slots, so I can put in 2 disks, which I've done. And but you know, not all laptops have that. So is the ultimate machine, you know, lots of screens. So we've got a setup over here. You can't see it on camera. There's 3 24-inch screens, 1 in portrait, and then 2 vertical on either side. There's this one with, you know, 6 screens. So you know, not as good as the 7-screen laptop, which has 7 times the average number of screens on a laptop, by the way. Or is it, you know, a really big screen? You want one of those, what is it, 49-inch super ultra wide things that, you know, I think Damian Brady said he got one of those, and then the mount he ordered couldn't actually hold it up, so he had to get a different mount. Or is it a big ass GPU? So you can see that the motherboard's hanging off the GPU in that photo. I'd love one of those too, but that's not for me. You know, I work predominantly off a laptop. So what is the ultimate dev environment for me? Well, it's something that looks familiar. So when I get to a computer, I kind of want it to feel the same every time. You know, if I go to a different machine and it feels different, it's annoying. So I want the hardware to feel the same. I want it to have all the tools for me to do my job well. If it doesn't have the tools, you know, I can't work. I can't work effectively, and neither can a lot of people. So if you're missing out on a license or something like that, you know, sometimes you just go out and buy it instead of waiting for the company to do it. That's unfortunate. But I'd like it to have everything, so I can do the best job I can. I want it to be visually pleasing. So what does that mean? Well, did anyone ever use like Windows NT 3.5 or Windows 95 for most people? You know, it was that gray on gray on gray, and it was really cool for the time, but if you look at it now, it's really bland. I'd like something to look nice. If I'm gonna work on a machine 8 hours a day, I wanna feel happy that I'm working on it. And definitely, I want it to perform great for my needs. So what my needs are gonna be different from your needs. So like Anthony's got his M1 Mac, which has insane battery life. But you know, it's a small machine. Maybe the insane battery life is what he needs. You know, he doesn't want it to run hot or run the fans as often. I want a bigger screen because I'm getting old. So I need something a bit bigger. Yeah, how do I get it? Now this isn't going to be some Ponzi scheme on this is how you get the money to get the hot laptops. So I'm just going to say, hey, get what works best for you. If it's the Ultrabook, or if it's a laptop like mine, or if it's one of those gaming laptops with, you know, where it's half heatsink and because you want the GPU, go for it. But please standardize on some things. So like I've standardized my kit on USB-C. So I've got a mouse that charges on USB-C. I've got a phone that charges on USB-C. The laptop charges on USB-C. Does mean I have to carry around dongles. And today when we were doing the prep, my dongle that came with the laptop had issues with our setup, which was awesome to actually debug. But I had a backup dongle here, which, is that on camera? No, it's not. I can't hold it up. But it has, you know, like network ports. It's the port replicators. But it's USB-C, so I can plug it in on either side of my machine. It's just really sweet. So I definitely recommend that. Also, obviously, a fast SSD. I think Hanselman had a blog post about, you know, spending money on the important things, like, you know, a good chair, a good bed. An SSD pays for itself, you know, really quickly. You don't want to waste time, especially when you're, you know, doing NPM installs or something like that, which is a lot of disk activity. Invest in good human interface devices. So get a good pair of headphones. USB-C charge is awesome. But make sure they sound great and they feel good to wear, because you may be on a Zoom or a Teams call all day. Good keyboard. Lots of people like mechanical keyboards, or just get something that feels comfortable and works for your needs. So like at the moment, I've got a keyboard that can connect to multiple devices, because I've got my laptop and a client laptop, and sometimes I have to flick in between them. Same with the mouse. And again, screens. If you're a big screen person or lots of screen persons, get what works for you. Just make sure you've got a good ergonomic setup. So how I am at the moment, standing with the keyboard kind of at arm's length, is not a good ergonomic setup. You don't want to get, if you're going to be typing or on a computer 8 hours a day, you don't want to get pain. So, okay, machine setup. I've got my machine, I've reformatted it, because I tried the dev channel preview of Windows recently, and things weren't working as expected. I needed to set up the machine again. So I wanted all my important tools to be installed. I wanted to get it up and running as quickly as possible and as easily as possible. I didn't want to hunt around for installers to do things, because there's always that random download that you have to find. Microsoft have been really good and have a thing called winget. Now, from there I can go winget install Chrome, and it pulls down Chrome. I can say winget install Windows Terminal, and it'll pull it down from the Windows Store itself. So I get updates, which is really cool. It's in preview at the moment, so things aren't perfect. I'm not using this just yet, but I will be in the future once it comes out of preview. At the moment, I'm using a thing called Chocolatey. Kind of the same thing. You say choco install instead of winget install. And that's available at chocolatey.org. Now this is a Windows application, because I'm using a PC. Why wouldn't I use a Mac? Well, I'm playing computer games at lunchtime with friends in different offices, and the games are on Windows, so I've gone for Windows. I do have a Mac as well, but most of my work is on Windows. If you're on a Mac, you can use Homebrew instead of Chocolatey. It's a very similar experience. It's an awesome program as well. Installing Chocolatey, you just need an administrative PowerShell console. You put in some code. So you can just put in this code, and you can copy and paste that off the Chocolatey website. Chocolatey.org install, or alternatively, I've actually gone and created a repository where you can run a script. It'll install Chocolatey and then install a bunch of the tools that I use. So you can take what I've done and roll with it, or you can fork the repository, do what you want with it, submit a pull request, or raise an issue if you're having problems. That's really cool. To see it in action, what I'll do, since I've run it on my machine already, I'll just fire up the Windows Sandbox. If you don't know about the Windows Sandbox, you'll learn something new. So it's a virtual machine that runs an older version of Windows on Windows. The idea being that if you've downloaded something that you're not quite sure of, you can run it in this sandbox. It doesn't touch your outside system. When you close this application, he says, "Are you sure?" Because it's going to trash everything in there. So that's really cool, because it's starting from like a sane point every time. So if I was going to install Chocolatey, I'd go and open up a PowerShell prompt here. Just make it a bit bigger. Cool. So that's administrator. I'll just go across to this script and copy it and paste. Hit enter, and bang! It goes and grabs Chocolatey, installs it, and then it goes and installs a few programs. So in terms of programs, there's a big list, but it's all like mostly the bare essentials. And then optionally, you can turn on some other things. So you'll have 7-zip in case you don't like the Windows zip program. You'll get a GUI to install things, Docker, Git, LinkPad, Teams, Notepad++, which is an awesome replacement for Notepad. The up-to-date version of PowerShell, so not the old one. Windows PowerToys terminal. Some paid applications, so like I like Snagit to take my screenshots. There's GreenShot, which is really cool, but I just prefer Snagit, so I install it there. Visual Studio, of course, we got to have some gaming on there, so Steam and Epic, and some other customizations. We'll get into that in a sec. So this thing, you can see it's downloading bits and pieces. I can see, hey, it's pulling down a version of .NET 4 because it looks like it was a dependency for another application. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I bootstrap my machines. And within like half an hour, I'm up and running and doing some customizations, which is really cool. Let's leave that because I've already got it installed, and we can go through that later. Now, the other things that it installs, I'll just go off there, are the Windows PowerToys, and I love them. So it's a few little tools in there that you can work with, make your life a bit easier. So if you're doing a lot of web work or any type of application work, UI work, and there's a particular color you want to look at, I can go and press Windows Shift C, and oh, you can't see it because it's on the second monitor. That's annoying. You can see a little, there we go. So it's the color underneath my mouse. It's actually giving me the color code. So if I find one, so I like that red. Oh, it's actually orange. I didn't even notice that. And I click on it. It comes up with all the shades. I've got a hex code, the RGB, and the HSL. So I can work with that color. That's a really cool way of if the colors don't match, you can quickly spot check and tell. The other cool thing is a thing called fancy zones. Now, if you've got the super big machine, super big screen, that's where this really shines. I can go, so I'll just go Windows Shift tilde, and what I can do is customize the sort of like a Windows snapping system. So I could have a grid system. I'll close that, and then I'm looking at this window. I kind of want it to move it over. I can drag it around and hold down Shift. You can see these blue boxes come up, and if I let go, it snaps it into that constraint. If I wanted to say, oh, I want it to be as big as 2 and 3, I can hold down Shift and Control, and you can see both of them are highlighted. I let go, and it snaps in there. So if you've got a few windows up that you want to put in certain places, this is a really cool way of doing it. So like I've got an ultra wide at home. I usually have like a browser taking up a certain section, VS Code on another side, and then I'm using virtual desktops, so that's Windows Tab. I can create other virtual desktops and flick them across. And then to alternate in between, I just go Windows Control, left and right, and I can flick in between my virtual desktops. And in this new version of Windows, I can rename the desktops and move them around. I can't move them around, but I can rename them. I'm meant to be able to move them around soon. All right. The other thing that I install, which is really good for presentations, is a thing called Zoom In. So I'll just bring up a browser. Okay, we got this browser, and I want you to look at something. I can, so I've got Zoom It running in the background. I can press Control-1 and zoom in on things, so you can get tied in, and then use the mouse to modify that zoom. Or I can press something like Control-2, and you can see my cursor has become a little of a crosshair. And I can draw boxes around things and call attention with arrows and things like that. These are all these are free tools, so you can improve your presentations and do call out items instead of, a lot of people are wiggling their mouse around and trying to draw attention. Hey, I can drop an arrow on the screen live and everyone knows what you're looking at. Okay. So there's a lot more tools. One of the other tools I install is a thing called Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL. Now, this is a tool that will kind of, revolutionize your web development. It makes it really easy to write code using Windows tools. So I can be in Windows, I can write things, but it's running on a Linux environment on my machine as well. There's another thing called WSL2. If you change it to version 2, it speeds everything up and makes everything run a lot faster. So why is this cool? Well, I'm developing Linux on Windows. So if you go back to the Balmer era, that would never have flown. But under Satya, it's the thing, which is awesome. And if you want to game some of your Azure app services, the Linux app services tend to give you a bit more RAM, so you get a bit better bang for buck. So I definitely look at that. So in order to get it, if you're on the Windows Dev channel, you just type in WSL --install into PowerShell, and away it goes. If you're not as brave to stay on the Dev channel, I certainly wasn't. I went off it. It was really cool, but I missed the, when you do like Windows Dot and you get the little emoji picker. So on the Dev channel, it actually has animated GIFs in there, which was a bit of fun. But it didn't work on some other things. So it is Dev. It's too early preview for me. If you're not on the Dev channel, you've got to run like 5 commands really, and a reboot. After the first couple, you need to, so these two, modify Windows and add some features to it. Then you install an update to the kernel that comes with Windows to get that up and running. And you change it to WSL version 2. After that, you can install a Linux operating system on your computer. So, what have we got there? So with WSL2, if you want to install the operating system, you just need to load up the store, the Windows Store. You can search for Linux and a whole bunch of things come up. So you can see there's Kali if you're into security for Linux. There's a few versions of Ubuntu. There's even one in here somewhere that is paid because it's optimized for the WSL experience. I think it's this X server for Windows. I'm using just Ubuntu because that's what I'm a little bit more familiar with. And that's really cool. So I can go here, I'll just load up Start. I won't use my keyboard because it will go on a different screen. I'll type in Ubuntu, hit enter, and bang, it's booted up Linux. That was super quick. If you don't believe that it is Linux, you can say lsb release -a to report the version, and it's Ubuntu 2004. So that's only a year old. So it's an LTS release. It's really good. Okay, what can you do with this? Well, I'm going to grab a chair because I'm hurting my feet standing like this, trying to type nicely. And I did say that good ergonomics were important, so I think they'll adjust the camera for me. Sorry, Adam, I had to. What's cool about this? Well, I can go to cd-mnt, mount, and that's where Linux mounts all its devices, and I can say, hey, I want to look at C. And I'll just ls on that. I'll make it a little bit bigger. I really hate the way when you scroll the wheel of the mouse and it changes the size of the window instead of just changing the font size. That's kind of a thing I don't like. We'll get to that in a minute. But what can we see? Well, hey, there's program files, there's users, and there's Windows. as a directory. So from Linux, I can look and see what's in Windows. What else can I do? I can say explorer.exe. Now, .exe is definitely not a Linux thing. I'll just pass in dot, and it loads up Explorer in that folder. So from the Linux subsystem, or in the Linux, I can run a command that actually triggers things in Windows. That sounds pretty cool. How does it actually do that? Well, we just ran explorer.exe, so I'll just find out where it is. I'll go which explorer.exe, and you can see it's looking in the Windows directory and actually calling that explorer. So they can talk to each other. That's all well and good. I want to actually do some programming and get better use out of this. So let's run some .NET. I'll just change my directory to my D, and I'll make a demo sample because that will certainly stand out tomorrow morning. Cool. I'm in here and I'm just going to go .NET. I've actually got, I've installed .NET already. Just list the SDKs. So I've got .NET 5 running on subsystem for Linux. To install it, it's not that hard. You can just go .NET Linux, and the first hit is the Windows docs on how to install it. Essentially, well, for Ubuntu, you just need to add a package source, an apt-get some installers. It takes a few minutes, it's not hard. I'm just going to make an MVC application. So, does everyone know about .NET New? No? Yes? Maybe? Oh, if you've got any questions or if you want to interrupt, go for it, even the different cities. Let's not make this a lecture. Let's try and make this a bit of a geek out. So .NET New, I'm able to run a whole bunch of different things. I can go .NET New MVC, and it'll create an MVC application a lot faster than I can go into Visual Studio and say, File New Project, New MVC. It's finished even before I've said it out loud. I can also do some cool things like add in the git ignore file that's targeted for .NET, so I don't check in those bin and object directories or my NuGet packages. There's a cool thing called the global.json file. You can generate that with the .NET tool, and that will tell your application to run in a particular version of .NET. So let's just ls. Okay, I've got this directory structure. It looks kind of familiar. It's an MVC application. I'll load it up. I'll just follow muscle memory and type in code and dot and hit enter. And okay, code's launched on Windows. If I look at it, I can see at the bottom it says WSL Ubuntu. So it actually knows, hey, you've called this from Ubuntu, so I'm gonna, hook in and do some things there. VS Code is really cool. Moving the workspace. So I'm not putting it in the right place, but it is a demo. VS Code is pretty cool. They've separated out the user interface from kind of the back end. So in this instance, the back end is running on Linux, and then the front end is running on Windows, and they're talking to each other. So I can see here the controller directory, and it's as if I'm working on it locally. If I go here and press Control tilde and bring up the terminal, that's my Linux. That's the same terminal as what I was getting in Ubuntu. So I've got there, and here, if I say lsb release-a, we can see it's running things on Ubuntu. I think that's cool. The other thing I think is cool is if I set a breakpoint here and press F5, I need an extension for debugging. Great. Of course, the demo fails as soon as I, try and get ahead of myself. Oh. Okay. I'll create a tasks file, see if that helps. No. Biscuits. No. What do I want? Create. Control. No. .NET Core. Okay, so I went into, usually it just comes up straight away. I went into the debug settings and I said, hey, add a customize configuration for .NET Core. It's launched my browser in Windows. I didn't trust the certificate, so it's giving me this prompt. But if I hit continue, nothing's happening, but I've got something blinking down here. I'll go to that and it's like, hey, that's my breakpoint. But I'm debugging something in Linux. If I go over to Ubuntu, how can I prove that? I can run htop and see all the running processes. And if I just pause that, we can see, hey, here's the .NET executable running the application. We can see there's a VS Code server running on the back end. So it's running on Linux, but I'm developing on Windows. That's pretty cool. All right. So that's VS Code. You can do the same thing in Visual Studio as well. There is a debug in WSL. I'm not going to risk the demo because I've put it in. No, I'll do it. Let's see if it works. Oh, I don't have a solution file, so I need to .NET new. And I'll create a solution file, so .NET new SLN. Okay. Now I'll open up the Windows Explorer in that directory. You can see there's the sample. Let's just notepad into it. It hasn't added any projects. That's fine. I'll just open it up in Visual Studio, which is loading. Oh, it's loading on the right screen. Good. There's no projects, so I'll just add that project back. All right. I'll go and set that same breakpoint. Go here. I can see there's WSL2. It's checking the configurations, doing some things. Awesome. I'll hit debug, play, and it'll build and run. Cross fingers. Bang. Oh, it hit the breakpoint. There was a little flicker. It showed, it brought up Edge, and then it's hit the breakpoint. So that's pretty cool. And just to prove it's still running in Linux, I'll go htop, and we can see, hey, there's VS debugger. So that's the Visual Studio 1 as opposed to Visual Studio Code. And if we wait long enough, here's the .NET command running that application. So I think that's pretty cool. What I don't think is cool is on this interface, when you scroll, it goes all weird. Like the whole window changes, even though I'm zooming in. But if I'm on a browser and I zoom in, it just changes the text. So thankfully, what's happened? Well, Microsoft have been developing a thing called Windows Terminal, which is kind of a replacement for CMD and PowerShell and even that Ubuntu, console, that prompt there. So this is a terminal. It's not the same as the other shells. So it's there was a thing in Windows, there is a thing in Windows called conhost, which kind of contains all the APIs and things like that. It wasn't really working for some programs like OpenSSL, and what was happening was some applications were opening up a console off screen and then moving content back and forth in order to get around things. So what Microsoft did is in a previous version of Windows, they added a thing called the Windows sudo terminal, which is a little bit more Unix-like in terms of like a software pipe that you can send commands to and get things back. And then you can put this terminal on top, and the terminal is just the UI. I really love it because, well, first off, I can go here and press Windows tilde, and my thing slides down. That's an extra app. They are adding this like Quake console mode to a future version of Windows Terminal. But I like doing that because I think it's cool. The other thing I like is, well, when I zoom, the text changes, but the rest of it doesn't. And if you notice, my prompt looks a bit different. So I'm running a thing called Oh My Posh, because this is PowerShell. I've got a thing called Oh My Posh. Now my scripts that I referred to my .files repository previously that installed a whole bunch of things. One of the things that it installs is Oh My Posh, and then there's another script you can run, and it customizes your Windows Terminal experience. So what does it do? Well, it sets up this prompt. It also changes the font slightly. So with Windows Terminal, there's a font called Cascadia Code, which is really nice to read and really good for a development experience because it's got font ligatures and things like that. So you can see if I type equals greater than, it kind of looks like it was a single character, but when I highlight over it, you can see it's two characters, which I really like, especially if you're doing like greater than or equal to. It compresses it down, makes it a little bit easier to read. This script adds a customized version of Cascadia Code, which has node font ligatures. So you can see it's got the old Azure logo, which is unfortunate, but it also has other bits in there. So let's just break this down a little. So I've got the directory that I'm currently in. I can control click on that, and it'll actually just bring up an Explorer prompt. So if I want to do something with the UI, I can. I don't have to. It's saying map personal here with the Azure logo because I've logged into the Azure CLI, and it's noticed, hey, you're logged in on a particular session, so this is the subscription you're logged into. So before I run that script that fires up 100 VMs in Azure and tanks my Azure bill, I can make sure that I'm running it on the right subscription beforehand. And then when I log out, that disappears off there. The other thing I can do is if I flick over to that demo sample, I'm looking for that demo sample app. I don't remember if I put in an underscore or a dash. I can press Control Space. So I've got a whole bunch of muscle memory using Visual Studio. One of those is Control Space, and I can get autocomplete actually in the terminal. So when I'm hunting around, it makes things a bit easier. So I've gone into that directory, and now, hey, there's a .NET logo, and it's reporting the version that it's going to run against because that's the latest SDK I've got installed on this machine. I think that's pretty cool. If I happen to go to a different directory, like the Jason Taylor's clean architecture one, which I've got here, you can see it's come up with some more information. So I've got a GitHub logo because this is stored on GitHub. It's saying it's on the main branch, and there's a couple of files that have been changed. So all of a sudden I can see, hey, I've worked on this. I haven't pushed my changes to GitHub. I know that I need to do that at some point. If I go into a directory in there that I know of, which was under source. So I know that this has an Angular application in Web UI Client app. If I go into there, you can see, oh, that .NET fragment in the prompt has changed to Node.js, and it's saying the Node.js version. Anyone think this is cool? Yes? Cool? All right, awesome. So there's a lot of cool things that that we can do with that. If I happen to run code from here, and it takes a while to start up, hopefully it's not as quick. Ah, okay. So that took 1.1 seconds. If I've got it set up so that if it takes more than half a second to execute a command, hey, let's drop it there. The other reason I think it's cool is if I go and hit run, and I'll just fire an old school CMD, and I'll go into my demos. I've got a batch file which does a long running task and comes up with a a cool progress bar, and it's ticking away, and I'm like, oh, this is going to take an hour. I'll just go off somewhere else. Oh, I've accidentally clicked, and it stopped processing because everything's tied together. That click has actually paused the program, and I come back an hour later and it hasn't moved. I'm not going to be pretty happy. If I do the same thing, so Windows Terminal, I can fire up different ones. I can fire up just a bog standard command prompt here. I'll go into the same bit. Okay, it's running. Every couple of seconds it ticks over. I'll highlight some stuff. It's still moving along because it's a terminal. It's not in the back end. It's not using conhost, so it's not all tied together, the front and back end. All right, let me just silence my Teams because that just pinged and that was not cool. It's not respecting Do Not Disturb. All right, what else have I set up? Well, I've got this prompt here. That's really nice. The other thing I do a lot is press LS, or if you're DOS oriented, dir, which just lists out the contents of a directory. And you can see there's some pretty icons next to all the different files. So I've got a gitignore file with a Git logo. That Docker file has a whale. It's the actual Docker logo. The node modules has an npm. I'll just zoom in a bit more. It's a little, hopefully can you make that out from back there? Yeah. I've zoomed in heaps. Yes, little boy in the back.
I have a question from the live audience.
Woo!
What is the spec of your actual machine?
What is the spec of my machine? Where is it? System. Yeah, that's not giving out anything. Okay, so I've got a 10th gen i7, so not the latest. 32 gigs of RAM, and an NVIDIA RTX 2060. So Dell just released a new version of this laptop. I got the old one at 25% off. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's a nice little machine. The battery life is not as good as I'd like, but everything's a compromise with these machines, I think.
What is the battery life?
4 to 6 hours, I think. Yeah, if I put it into power saving, and I'm not developing, I'm not like doing hardcore stuff constantly. I could squeeze out 3 to 4 hours. If it's just web browsing, I could get a bit more out of it. So on my MacBook, which had an i9, I could get more battery life out of that if I was just doing other non-dev things. As soon as I did dev things, the fans kicked in and it was like a little oven, but that's the i9. All right.
Are they on ultimate mode?
Sorry?
Are they on
Ultimate mode? I really hate the fan spinning. I don't go full out. I kind of want stability and a little bit of battery life, but you know, more power when I play games. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'll sit down on the couch. I'll have the laptop on my lap, and then the fans will kick in because it just doesn't have enough airflow. It just heats up a bit. So no ultimate mode for me. I also I don't know. It's got a green pixel, but it's sad. There's one of the pixels has gone green, but yeah, I digress. So we're talking about the terminal and the prompt. What else is cool? Well, if I make an obvious typo, because that's not going to work. So I've gotten some red text. I've also got this cool little red heart saying, "Hey, the last thing failed." Maybe if it didn't have any output, like pretty output, like PowerShell gives great output when you really smash the keyboard and you do the wrong thing. But if you didn't and it had no output, hey, we get a little. If the exit code wasn't 0, hey, we'll put a heart there. So that's on my posh. I love that. The other thing that I've got set up in the repository are some Git aliases, and some shortcuts in the actual terminal itself. So I'll just go up a bit. I'm in a directory with, I went too far, a web UI. So I know it's a .NET app because .NET's there. I've also got muscle memory saying F5 is how I run things, so I'll press F5. Oh, it's changed it. So I'll just stop it because it won't start. I don't have everything set up for it. But instead of running, I pressed F5, it ran .NET Watch Run. So I've got some stuff in there to actually change my input. So it'll take it, it'll roll it back, and then plug in what I really meant. How does that actually work? So I've got my dot files. One of the things, I've got a PowerShell directory in there, and when you actually start up the profile, it sets up a whole bunch of hotkeys and aliases and plugins. So the plugins being the little icons on, when I did an LS. It also sets up some hotkeys. So I can see here, when you hit F5, revert the line, insert .NET Watch Run, and accept the line, so hit enter. So that's how this is working. So you can plug in any of your own things to be what you want. Like Control-Shift-B is another one that I use frequently to build, rebuild the whole project. The other thing I've got set up are aliases. So just a couple there. Things that I do frequently. When I type Git, sometimes, well, that one was fine. Sometimes I type GTI instead of Git, which will never work. So I could set up an alias for that. But what I did instead was set up an alias that's just G. So I can say G status. So that runs Git and then the status command. Or if I'm really lazy, I can say GST because I've got aliases in Git to make shorthands for all their commands as well. And I get an even shorter result because I've configured it to be, hey, if I'm going to be that lazy to type that much information, I obviously just want to don't bury the headline. Just tell me what's been modified or what's been changed. I don't need all this extra stuff. I mean, here it says, you're on branch main. Well, my prompt tells me I'm on branch main. So I think that's pretty cool. Let's flick out of terminal because I think I've gone on that for a while. Unless anyone has any terminal questions. Maybe they will and they're coming back. I don't know. Cool. So Visual Studio. We talked about this a bit in the news. It's still around. It's still active. There's a lot going on. The biggest thing is that Visual Studio 2022 is going to be 64-bit. So if you have a project with a solution with a lot of projects, you can chew up more RAM than, I'm not going to say Chrome because I don't think that's possible. You can give it more RAM to load up the bigger solutions. Hopefully you don't have a monolith with 300,000 files there. But if you did, you'd need about 3 minutes to load it. Anyone think 64-bit Visual Studio is cool? Yep.
Can't believe it hasn't been done yet.
Sorry?
I can't believe it hasn't been done yet.
You can't believe it hasn't been done yet.
No.
So I think there's a lot of legacy stuff that they had to move over to make this happen. So it's a huge effort. This Visual Studio has been around for how long? Years and years, decades. Yeah.
This is in about 2010, I think, the first time.
Yeah, it was around well before 2010.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. So I think they did a monumental amount of work to make it 64-bit. Question in the back.
What was the program name for the mouse pointer?
What was the program name for the mouse pointer? Cool. I love these ones. Zoom it. So it's if you've heard of sysinternals, these are I think Mark Rusanovich. He's a big name in Microsoft. He created a whole bunch of these sysinternals. I'm not sure if he created Zoom it, but Zoom it is one of them. Now it's a fairly innocuous. Oh, he did create Zoom it. Cool. It's a fairly little program. It can just sit in there. You can flick a button so it starts with Windows, and it does just a few things. So you can zoom in on things with Control 1. If I wasn't selecting it, that would be lovely. Now that I've actually gone in and went to show Zoom it, I've changed it and it's kind of broken it. There we go. So Control 1, I can zoom in on things. Control 1 to back out. I can press Control 2 to draw. Very pretty drawing. I can put boxes. I can put one of these shortcuts will do a line. Shift will do a line. Control Shift does arrows. But yeah, Zoom it. That's one of the things that I actually install as part of the dot files. So if I go to the dot files and to the setup Choco script, which sets up everything, sysinternals is there, plus a whole bunch of others. So yeah. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. Where was I? Visual Studio. Okay, so 64-bit, awesome. This is Cascadia code, or some of the characters in Cascadia code. Definitely go fire up your Visual Studio once you've got the terminal installed. I'll just go and back into that sample project. I'm running Cascadia code in Visual Studio, like as my font in Visual Studio, so I can, you can see there, it's running the font ligatures. In order to set it up, you just go to Tools, Options, Fonts and Colors, and hopefully it doesn't hang for that long. Did this yesterday. I click on it, it doesn't show, I click off, click on, it's fine. Anyway. And you can select Cascadia code from the drop down here. There are a lot of other cool fonts like Fira code and Operator Mono, which I like, but that's paid. But Cascadia code is this great mix of readability and free, so the price is right.
Can you use that on other IDEs? Is that standard?
On IDEs?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use them in pretty much everything, and I don't know why caps lock is on. So the Cascadia code, it's an open source font. They actually list out somewhere, where is it? Maybe in their wiki. Installing, is it? No. They do list a whole bunch of different ways to install it, but I include it as part of my setup script. I thought there was a thing about where you could use it. There was a link where it used to show, hey, you can use it on all these different things. Maybe it's Fira code. Because Fira code definitely lists. This is Fira code, it's slightly different. These are all the different types of ligatures. Cascadia code has similar ones. Sorry, I'm scrolling quickly on purpose just to look around. I can't find it. But essentially, most IDEs, or at least Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, can do it. If you're in VS Code, there's an extra tick box you have to click to get the ligatures going. But it's awesome. And was it Rider supports the fonts with font ligatures, which would be the other big one. I can't think of any other big IDs that wouldn't do it. Yeah. So I definitely go and get a good font running. I mean, you can zoom in. It's a true type font, so it looks great in any zoom. Now, I wouldn't be talking about an IDE unless we were talking about extensions. Now, Visual Studio has been around for a while. There are a lot of extensions out there, so I'm not going to go into them. Some people have had problems with certain extensions and blamed performance on them, but I'm not one of those. So I like ReSharper. It works really well. It helps me code. The other, if you're looking at free extensions, the one thing I'd recommend, if it says it's by Mads Christensen, odds are it's a good extension. He does a lot of extensions, and they're quite useful. So if you want to nest files together, he's got ones that can do that, and a whole bunch of other things. That VS Color output's pretty cool too. But most of my time I spend in a little thing called Visual Studio Code. So we looked at Visual Studio Code a little bit at first. Let's look a little bit more into it. So I'll close Visual Studio because we're not doing anything with that at the moment. And I'll launch Visual Studio Code. Cool. So first off, mine's looking a little bit different from the default install. So you can see I've moved my my sidebar off to the right, not on the left, which is the default. Why would I do something like that? Well, to change it, you right-click on it, and you can say move sidebar left or right. Now, there's a whole bunch of cool hotkeys in Visual Studio Code, and I'll just load up what is it? I'll load up this. If I'm looking at text and that text expand across the entire screen, and I'm looking at reading it, and I'm saying, I really want to hide away the sidebar. So I'll click on the sidebar, or I'll press Control-B to hide it. So there's a lot of cool shortcuts. You can do most things on the keyboard. I'll press Control-B. Bang, the text has moved over to the left, and I've lost. I was looking here. So I'll keep my cursor there because that's kind of where my eyes are. I'll press Control-B. Bang, the text is gone. I kind of have to reorient where I'm looking at. So that's quite frequently I'll collapse that sidebar, and I'll lose. If it was on the left-hand side, I'll lose where I'm at. So I move it over to the right. Also, it looks a little bit more like Visual Studio, so it feels a little bit more familiar. The other cool shortcuts in here are if I wanted to change the colors for all these things, I can highlight color and press Control-D, and it'll highlight all those occurrences of whatever section I'd highlighted previously. So if I highlight just the OLO and press Control-D, you can see it's dropping cursors in, well, you can't see it if I freeze it, but you can see it blinking here. I've got a few different cursors, so I can then go and move them around and change the color of everything to be, white smoke or something like that. I won't do that because that will look really bad. But I can highlight those things. If I wanted to change multiple lines at once, I can click and press Alt and click again, and I can drop cursors wherever I want. If it's all in a line, I can press Alt-Shift and do the same thing, and it'll drop multiple cursors all on a line. The other reason why this is cool is I can highlight and press copy, and they all get their own clipboards. So I'll just go and move to the end and paste, and you can see it's actually, each cursor has gotten its own clipboard. So if I want to make mass edits to this, it's fairly easy to do that. Cool. The only other one, we know about F5 being the shortcut to start and run and debug. F1 is a really good one because you can run any command in Visual Studio Code from the F1. So you never really have to leave your keyboard. I can even change, if I look for themes, I can change the theme in Visual Studio without touching my mouse. Is that pretty cool? Yes? No?
Can you do those edits in Visual Studio as well?
So can I do the same edits in Visual Studio? Yes, but it's nowhere near as easy. So I keep on forgetting the hotkey for that because it's just too damn hard. There is a hotkey. So insert carets at all matching. You've got to, it's kind of like a find. And I've lost it. Edit multiple carets, insert next matching caret. So that's that. If I'm matching a full word, yes. No, highlights, edit, multiple carets, insert next. Okay, cool. So we've got multiple carets. We can see that. But if I copy and paste, it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So I'll go up. So copy, paste. But it's gone index privacy, index privacy. It's sharing the clipboard.
Yeah.
They don't get their own clipboards. So it's nowhere near as cool as the VS Code one where they're getting their own things. So if you do have like repetitive code blocks, but with minor changes, you can drop you can actually copy them out and put them back in where they belong. All right, so we move the sidebar to the right. I'm running Cascadia code. How did I do that? Well, I go into Preferences, Control, Comma. That's like on Macs, Preferences usually Command, Comma. Some Windows apps have been picking that up. I can search for a font, and there's the font family, and I can put in Cascadia code, and there's a font ligature section as well. So this is all stored in a settings.json. And the cool thing about this is it's a JSON file and it's scoped. So I can have one for my machine setup. I can even have ones for my project setups too. And then I can even sync the machine setup one so that all my machines will share it. So I can go into the widget and turn on settings sync and sync it to my Microsoft or GitHub account. Now even the zoom will sync. So if you're running two different computers and you change the zoom on one, a split second later the zoom will change on the other machine, which could be really if you're running two different machines, it can be distracting or annoying. But you can do that. The other cool thing is if I go to my terminal, so Control tilde, see it's fired up PowerShell, and it's pulled in my the same settings as what was running because it's running the same profile. So all the changes I've made to Windows Terminal, I get them here too. I guess even if I hold down Control, I can click on things, but it's not really the same. So it's not launching the Explorer window. But if I was if that was a directory inside my project, I could go to it. So any links that come up here, I can click on them, and then VS Code will open them, which is really good, especially if you have some little typo and it has a compile error. You can click on it, go to that file, fix it. So where were we? we covered off. We looked at the fonts. Now, the cool things about VS Code, there's a lot of extensions out there. So if I'll just open up a different directory here, and that's got a bicep file. So anyone heard of bicep? Yes? Cool? Yes, Josh in the back. Bicep is like ARM templates on steroids, which is really cool. This one looks really long. I've got no idea what's going on here. You can see I've got a little, like an ARM icon there. So that's the bicep icon. If I'm, typing on things, I can get, if I control space, I can get some IntelliSense, which is really cool. So the extension, I've got a bicep extension, it's adding in language services, so I can get that IntelliSense going. The other thing that it does, which I love, is I can press F1 and not leave the keyboard and just type in, preview. No, I'll type in bicep preview. Oh, bicep was enough. I can see an open visualizer. So I can visualize this template. Hit enter, bang, it's dropped off a cool little dependency diagram. I can see there's a few things going on. I wish there were icons here, but this is a good start. So I've got a function app. It's connecting to storage account and with some blob services. There's some function configs and bindings. It's hosted on an app service, and there's app insights. Well, that's a lot easier to read than reading through this whole file and trying to work out what's going on. So things like this can make things really cool. The other thing you can do is, if I've got this project here, what I can do is press F1 and type in extensions, and you can see here the first option is this configure recommended extensions. I'll hit that. It's created a .VS Code directory, so that's where all the configurations for VS Code go. And it's created an extensions.json file in there. Now, what you can do is list any recommendations or unwanted recommendations into your project and then commit it. So if this was a project that I was sharing with other people, what I'd do is then say, oh, well, the bicep extension really helped me work on this project. So I'll go here, I'll copy the name of the extension, and I'll plug it in there, so that when I commit this code and someone else pulls it, it'll prompt them to say, hey, we recommend that you grab this extension to make your life easier on this. Anyone think that's cool? Yeah. So this is exactly along the same lines of when I set up my machine, I want to have all the important tools installed. When I go to my projects, I want to get all the important things for those too. The other extensions that I quite like, there's one called Gitmoji. So Gitmoji. Now that adds into Visual Studio. If I go to the Git tab, and I went to one that actually had a Git repository, just initialize a repository. Doesn't take long. It adds the smiley face onto there. So if I click on it, it gives me a whole bunch of emojis that I can prepend my commit messages with. So if I'm adding, something to make life easier, what would I use? I'd go down, maybe search for improve, the structure of format. I guess I am, because I'm adding an extensions JSON. You can see it's dropped in the little paint thing there, and I can say, VS Code added extensions.json, added recommended extensions. A little message so that that commit message, when I'm looking at the list of commits, so you can see on my repo here, I've done that a few places. Hey, there's one. I've simplified the layout, made it look a bit prettier. I added a feature here. There was some documentation. oh, I even fixed a bug on one of the scripts. And it's easy to tell because, hey, that's an emoji of a bug. So does anyone think they find this useful? Yeah? Awesome. So I quite like the those extensions. The other extension I like is the thing called GitHub Codespaces. So it's you can install it. In here, it's a bit of your instant dev environment. So what does that look like? Well, I'll go to a little bit of a bigger one. I'll go to my blog. I have it on GitHub, and when I want to make an update to it, I can click on Code, and I can say, hey, open with Codespaces. Oh, here's one I used yesterday, so I'll click on that, and it'll fire that up in the cloud. So remember when I said VS Code, they separated the front and back ends, so you got a back end running on the server, the front end running on your computer. Well, they're firing up a container for me, and that's going to host the back end, and then I'm going to have a front end on my computer. Here's the front end, and it's in Edge. It's not in VS Code, but I could connect it to my running VS Code instance, but it works perfectly well. Here you can see I've got a little thing at the bottom saying Codespaces, where it used to say, when we were doing the WSL development, it would say WSL. So it's hooked into Codespaces. The other advantage is if I do, a speed test on this, it's running at 8,000 megabits a second. So if you're going to download the internet or do an npm install, it happens really quick. Anyone like fast internet? Yeah, I've got to get a yes for that. So I can do everything here. I think that's really cool. If I've got some settings in here on the VS Code, I can modify. I can run them, sync them up here, and this VS Code instance, which is running in the browser, will work with them too. So I've got things in here. I've got even custom tasks to do different things. So if I press F1 and I look for tasks, and I'll just run a task, I can see, hey, I've got one to generate a new post, which if I go, I'll just kill that to make it a bit bigger. I can see, hey, here's in this tasks.json, I've got a new post task that runs a script, and it takes in an argument. So if I go to scripts, hey, it's just running a bog standard shell script. So I can say, hey, run task, new post, and this is a demo for user group. Hit enter. It's executing the task. Done. You can see it's actually added a file into my repository, into my my instance here, so I can do stuff with it. That's cool. It actually becomes a lot more valuable when you're doing a more complex command. So if I go to the clean architecture project here, anyone worked with clean architecture, Jason Taylor's clean architecture solution? Yeah. So if I'm doing like an entity framework migration, I've got to actually pass it a couple of different commands. So I need to say, hey, this is my startup project and this is my infrastructure project. So that when I run migration, it puts it in the right place, but it pulls settings from the right place as well. So what you could do on this one is look for the workspace settings. So I've just pressed F1, typed settings. It's gone and created settings.json. And what would I do with that? I'd actually like to have a tasks. Sorry, I should have done a tasks one. So I'll create a tasks.json, and I'll plug in a task I've got here, which it's called EF, create migration. I'm calling the EF tool, saying migrations, add. Oh, I need to pass an input, which will be the name of the migration. So the formatting's a little wonky, but here I've got a migration name. It's passing in a few different parameters in there to point it at the right place. So if I save that, press F1, and I'll say, hey, run a task, and create a migration. Hit enter, migration name. Hey, I'm just going to do some, epic migration of data. It's going to execute that task, create the migration for me. So if I've modified my domain and my context, bang, it'll get up and running. This could even call a script that does the work. There's a lot of things that you could do with this. This is more of a just a seed to spark some creativity. When I'm looking at this, hey, I really don't like seeing these bin and object directories, and I don't like seeing node modules. So the other things I can do is here, I'll say, hey, with the files, I want to exclude certain things. By default, it'll add in a few bits, and since I can just pass a glob pattern there, I can add my own. So let's just keep an eye on a few different bits. So these bits and that node modules, when I hit save, they'll actually disappear. It's mostly code-generated stuff or things I don't want to look into, so I can hide them out of the way, and then I can save this into the project, and everything just looks a bit cleaner. This is all stuff, customizations you can add into your projects and then make them feel more familiar. The other thing I can do is I'll just load up the other cool thing, and I'll just end on this one because this is my last one. If I go, I'll just open up the folder. That demo sample I created at the beginning. This is really cool that it runs on WSL. I think it'd be really cool to Dockerize this, which usually sounds super difficult. But what I can do in VS Code is I can say doc. I've got the Docker extension, so it's added in some tasks. One of them is add Docker files to workspace. I hit enter. What type of project? Hey, it's an ASP.NET.Core one. I want to run it for Linux. Port 5000 sounds cool. I'll include a Docker Compose. Bang. It sets it up for you. So I can then go to my debug settings and launch this in Docker. So it'll run a .NET build. It should launch this in Docker.
Is it only the .NET? I guess it only runs Docker that runs .NET.
Yeah. So when it's configuring it for Docker, so it's pulling in the right images for ASP.NET, which is why it asked me where I wanted to run it under. And then it's setting up some of the build scripts for it. I think since I've made some changes to it during while we built it, it's not working properly. But but really, what I'd be doing instead is, again, going back to that clean architecture project that Jason's got, because he's got it set up with a Docker Compose as well. The cool thing about this is I can say here, hey, we want to use a database connection string from another image that's going to be hosted in this Docker Compose, in this Docker Compose file. So when I run the application, hey, it spins up the database server for me. My install script doesn't actually install any of these dependencies. So I don't need to install SQL Server. That's one less thing running on my machine. So if I'm not using it, great. Cosmos DB just had Linux released in preview. So Docker image for that. There's Azurite, which replaces a lot of the Azure storage stuff. So like queues and tables and things like that. Blob storage. So I can take away a lot of these dependencies and put them into Docker. Then when I go to another project, I don't need to look through and install which version of tools that it specifically needs. It's like, hey, if there's a compose file there, I can spin it all up and get up and running. And again, when you, so if you're going for GitHub code spaces, that's got Docker installed as well. So you can spin up your dev environment, apt-get in all the different bits and pieces that you need to work with. And when you hit debug, it hooks up some redirects in there. So your local ports will flow back into onto that remote server. So
It's running like code in the cloud.
yeah, this is running the code in the cloud. So it's private beta right now. And a lot of companies, like they may or may not want to get into that, running the code in the cloud. Like I've got a client that they've shipped me a laptop to work on because they want the code running on their stuff, which is cool. But if we can run our stuff in the cloud, then it's a lot easier to pick up. And if you've got to make small changes and things like that, hey, you can do it on an iPad, which is pretty cool.
Would you be able to install like extensions?
So installing extensions into that code space is hosted? Yes. Yeah. So Visual Studio Code, when it's running on your machine, it's an Electron app.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a web app in the background. If it's running in a browser, it's the exact same thing. So it respects all the same. It can work with all the same extensions and settings and all those things. So if you did have a .vs Code directory in your project, it'll respect all those customizations as well. Cool. Well, if there are no other questions, we've got some QR codes here. So the left-hand one will get you 500 points. I've got my .files repo here, so you can pull it down and get up and running. If you have any feedback, we've got another QR code. Don't scan that with the rewards app. It won't work. But yeah, thank you very much.
You need to do a static web version of your
Yeah.
All right, so that was awesome. Can we see who is coming next month?
Yes, we can.
And have we got any questions? I was just chatting to some of the guys at the back, so I missed the last few questions. All right.
Why did it go there?
So we have Costa doing microservices with Docker. All right. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I've been working with Costa and working with microservices, so
there we go.
he's definitely right in the middle of it.
Right. All right. So that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any questions online before we say goodnight? No? All good?
Yeah.
All right. So I hope you had a good time tonight, guys. Thank you, Matt, for putting that together. There's so many tools, so much productivity you can improve, so much productivity you can lose by finding all these tools.
Yep.
But if you've already found them and you've found the best ones, that's awesome. So we will see you next month. And this is Adam Cogan signing off for SSW TV.